So today I'm just going to go over some basic hints and tricks so that you can get the best possible score on your math sections. So first we want to keep in mind what your goals are. So if your goal is to get a 600 on the math section, which I think is a good and reasonable goal, then that would mean you would need to get approximately 38 out of the 58 questions right. If you want to shoot for a 700, you need to get approximately 50 out of 58 questions right. So if you see below, there's the conversion table that gives you all of the scores, but this conversion table is only for one specific test. It'll change dependent on the test that you take, but it's usually around that general area. The second thing is to remember to do the easy problems first and then go back to the harder ones. I know this isn't anything new, but it is good to be reminded of it. Remember, if you're spending too much time on something, to just move on. Also, remember to guess whenever you get to those problems that you have no idea on. So you don't want to leave it blank. There's no penalty if you leave it blank. And if you have no idea at all, then have an answer choice in mind that you should always pick, like A, B, C, or D. So I'll just always pick one of those letters each time. I know that a lot of you may think that C is the best answer choice to pick when you don't know, and that's not the case on the SAT. C is not an answer choice more commonly than any other choice. So C is not always the choice to go with. Also, remember when you're guessing that if you can eliminate an answer, then do so, because then that reduces your chances of getting the wrong one. Next, plug in your answer choices. Again, nothing new. For this, if you are plugging your answer choices, it's always wise to start with the middle answer. And what I mean by that is like the middle number, and then go up or down if incorrect. So I'll show you on this problem what I mean by that. So in the dotted box, it gives you multiple choice. And so I would say, if you had no idea how to do this, that you would just take each of these answer choices and plug it in for X, and then see which one, when you plug each of these in, will get you 16. However, perhaps the answer choice is E, and if it's E, that means you'd have to plug in A, B, C, D, all of those in before you get to E. But a better strategy would be to start with the middle number. So 4 is the middle number, not necessarily the middle answer choice. It's the middle number in between 12, 8, 4, 2, and 1. So you plug that in and you see what it gets you. And if it's way bigger than 16, then that means you would need to plug in a smaller number. And if it's smaller than 16, then you have to plug in a bigger answer. So I will take my calculator and I will plug in 4 first. So 2, whoops, and then 4 times 4. So I get something that's a lot bigger than 16. So that means I can eliminate answer choices A and B as well as C. So now I have just reduced my plugging in time. So now I can go and I can plug in D. So answer choice 2. Okay, it's still not 16, so I would say, just to be safe, to plug in, but if you are running really short on time, then you can safely assume it's probably E. So that means you would have only needed to plug in 2 answer choices to come to that conclusion. So sure enough, it is. So it's these small things sometimes that is going to help you out the most, because it may seem silly, but this isn't an SOL, and so you need to be very wise with your time, because you were not given a lot of time. The next, speaking of time, is to monitor your time. So on the SAT, you have 55 minutes with a calculator and 25 minutes with no calculator. That's not a lot of time. When I took this test myself, I ran short in time as well, and I'm a math teacher. So you definitely need to be very conscious of the time. Another strategy is you could always wait to bubble in your answers until the last 5 minutes. So one thing to note is that you have to make sure, if you do choose to bubble in later, that at the 5 minutes left, that you have to stop what you're doing and go back and bubble in, so that you don't not you aren't able to bubble them all in. That would not be good. However, if you do bubble it in all at once, it is going to save just a few minutes, which a few minutes could be a few problems and a few more right answers, and then that's going to help your score. So that is something to think about. That is a strategy you may want to use. The next is to use mental math whenever you can. And also, it doesn't hurt to memorize the formulas so that you're not having to flip back and forth and looking at the formulas. And so if they're already in your brain, then that saves you some time. So with the mental math, what that means is just if you know what that 2 times 2 is 4, which hopefully you all do, then don't waste your time typing that in. And I know a lot of you like to be really careful, and that's why you do it, but it just may be a good time to just trust your brain and go with that instead of having to plug it in. And then the last thing is write down each step you're taking, and it'll help you find your mistake if you make one. So basically, next to the problem, whatever you're doing, whatever's happening in your brain or on the calculator, just jot it down as you're doing it. So then if you get to the end and it's not an answer choice, you can go back and retrace your steps instead of having to remember what exactly you did. It doesn't hurt to write down the work, so it can only help.